Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We got a special episode because today we're at the Driftless zone. We're going to answer the age-old question, is there any gold in the Driftless zone? But first, what is the Driftless zone? Well, the Driftless zone is a place glaciers forgot. See, during the Ice Age, ice sheets developed in Canada.
How's it going, eh?
And they got so big and heavy that they started to flow. They flowed out of Canada into the Midwest, but there's an area in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa.
What about Illinois?
That the glaciers missed. So they call that the Driftless zone. Now, nearly all the gold that us hobbyist prospectors find in Wisconsin is from the glaciers. It was brought down from Canada and disseminated in little pockets here and there throughout the Midwest. So that's why it's a question of, is there gold in the Driftless zone? There are a few stringers here and there in Wisconsin and Minnesota and other places where there is native gold, but it's so little, it's never been economical. And I sure don't know where those places are.
That's a sad story.
The first thing we have to do is do some prospecting and see what there actually is here. Now, all the bedrock maps in this area show that there's nothing but limestone, dolomite, and sandstone. So if I find anything other than that around here, that can be a point of interest. Now, this is a tiny little stream, but it has a gravel bottom, so that'll give me my first indication of what's here. So there's just a little bit of that gravel. Let's examine it here. All right, so let's look at this gravel a little bit. Now you can see in these tailings there are no igneous rocks. Nothing metamorphic, nothing igneous. There's pieces of chert and pieces of limestone. And that's it. Let's pan this down and see if we have any black sand or anything at all. See if there's any black sand other than that topsoil. Pretty light. So I don't see any gold, but I do see something interesting. So that bright shiny speck there, it's floating. That's a sulfide. And what it looks like to me is a piece of galena. Now, it's really hard to see, but you can see it's kind of square, and that's the shape of a galena crystal. Now, I'm near Platteville, Wisconsin. Platteville was a big mining district, not for gold, but for lead and zinc. Now, just because I only see limestone doesn't mean there's not valuable minerals in limestone. There can be. Given the right circumstances, there can even be a lot of gold. Most of the gold in Nevada comes from Carlin-style gold deposits. And that's where invisible specks of gold flow into limestone or something porous like that, and they get millions of ounces out of that style. You can't see it, you can't pan it, it's too small, but they use cyanide to leach it out, and that's how they get the gold out of that. And that piece of galena is lead sulfide, and galena also carries with it silver, but mostly lead. Typically when minerals are laid down, it takes heat. You need hydrothermal fluids full of dissolved minerals to flow through the rocks and deposit them as they go. Well, here in the Midwest, we don't have mountain building. We didn't have a lot of volcanic activity, not after all this sediment was laid down. All the volcanics happened long before that. So we don't really have a source to drive a lot of mineral deposition. But here in Wisconsin, this area of limestone was so deep that the geothermal gradient heated the fluids up enough for zinc and lead to get dissolved and to transport, get moved around and lay themselves into ore deposits. So unless there's like a igneous pluton that happens somewhere or something else, there's not going to be any native gold, and I'm not aware of anywhere around here that that's the case. But that doesn't mean that's the only way gold could get into this area, so we got to keep looking. We're probably going to need a bigger stream than this. Now here's a much bigger river. This is right in the city of Platteville. There's a lot of smaller streams that empty into this one, and as far as I can tell, all of them originate in the Driftless zone. So there's really no reason that any one of them should have picked up glacial material and brought it here. But I'm going to look at this gravel bar and see what kind of geology I can find. Try to piece together what we're looking at. Now if I look at the tailings, I'm seeing a lot of pieces of chert, some pieces of limestone. So all I'm seeing is sedimentary rock. Chert, limestone, sandstone, that's the bulk of it. So there's no sign of any igneous intrusions, metamorphism, and no sign of glacial till. No glacial deposits. No quartz for sure. And that's not a good sign when you're looking for gold. See if there's any black sand at all around here. I don't see any. I am finding a little bit of black sand, and that could be some mineral-rich material. It's just not gold. Now some of it's a really bright silvery color, and I'm pretty sure that's galena. And that can be valuable in large quantities. That's what they mined in this area. But in that small quantity, not worth anything. It's just kind of cool to see. Take a few more samples and see if I find anything notable. I'll let you know.
Wait, what's going on over there?
Never seen that before. Don't know if those fish were fighting or spawning. Notice I'm digging in the exposed gravel. I'm not digging in the spawning bed. I don't want to disturb the trout either. Well, I prospected a few spots and I can't find any reason to believe that there would be gold around here. Pans were not really meant to be mining tools. They're prospecting tools. They're so you can go around, test things, and see what's there. Right now, I don't see the right kind of geology for gold, but that doesn't mean we're out of luck. There might be a loophole to prospecting in the Driftless zone, and we're gonna try that next. This is the Mississippi River. Now I know there's gold in this river. I found it. It cuts through a huge portion of Minnesota and Wisconsin that's full of glacial material. So if there's glacial material in the Driftless zone, it could have gotten here from a place like this, a river that flows through it all. And it is incredibly windy today. Now I'm gonna brave the wind and take a few pans and just see what's out there. Maybe there's some glacial deposit, maybe some gold. Like a news reporter, it's so windy out. I'm gonna get hit in the face of the fish.
At Barry Island Beach, and there's no sign to stop.
It's too windy to even hold my pan still. I didn't find any glacial material there. I'm gonna go to another spot and check that out if I don't get blown away first. This next spot is just all man-made, man-deposited limestone boulders. I need to find a natural riverbank full of gravels and stuff that's not here. I give up for now. I'm gonna retreat. This wind is beating me up. I'm gonna regroup, we'll try something else. Now some people wonder what I do for a living. Well, I'm a geologist, and I follow a drill rig around where they're building wind farms. And I analyze the strength and composition of the soil and rock for the foundations. And that's why I'm down here in the Driftless zone. I was driving down the road and I saw this outcrop here and it looked kind of interesting. You can see there's different zones of bright red oxidized sandstone and then bleached sandstone there. When you see this kind of discoloration, it's kind of a sign that there were fluids going through it, either oxidizing or reducing the iron to turn it red or reducing to turn it white. And you can find other minerals alongside. I saw this green and I thought maybe it was copper. It's just lichen, but it's a cool outcrop. So here's another small stream crossing a road, and I just want to take another scoop and look at the geology in this area. Cockleburs, burdock. Again, in the tailings, I'm just seeing pieces of chert. Chert nodules are pretty common in limestone. And then I'm seeing some sandy chert, maybe some sandstone. I'm seeing some limestone, some really hard silicified sandstone, some concretions. Again, all sedimentary. No sign of glacial till. Let's pan this down and see if there's any heavy minerals. I don't see any sign of black sand at all. That is all blonde sand. There are some heavier minerals in there and they kind of have a shine to them. Now these are the heavier minerals. It's really hard to see with this camera, but they do have a gold color. I'm guessing sulfides, but let's take them home and look at them in the microscope. So what I've been doing is I've just been snuffering up some of the heavier minerals. I'm going to take this home and really take a close look back at the lab. Now those minerals look kind of interesting, so I'm going to speed pan a couple more pans down and collect a few more of those. Actually does look like some of these pieces are gold. I'm going to take a few more pans so we have something to look at when we get home, but this is interesting. Okay, I got about 8 or 10 pans of that stuff snuffered up, so that'll be interesting to see, but I got one more place that I want to check out before we go home. Here's another stream with a nice gravel bar on a bit of an inside bend, and this looks like a perfect place to look for gold, but let's see if there's any other kind of minerals or gold here. So again, here there's no sign of any glaciation, no black sands. I did find some more of those metallic minerals, which I snuffered up, and we'll still look at those. So the rivers that start in the driftless zone, I just don't think they're going through the right type of geology to pick up any gold. You could prove me wrong, but I'm gonna try our loophole. Now it's possible that a river that originates outside in the till zone could flow into the driftless zone and carry with it some flecks of gold. So I think that's what we need to look for. Now this is a Wisconsin river. It runs from the outside of the driftless zone all the way across the state until it runs into the Mississippi. So maybe it brought some glacial debris and gold with it. So I'm gonna search around and see what we can find. Well, it's not good. All I can find are mud banks. There's not gonna be any gold in that. It's just the wrong kind of depositional environment for gold to deposit. Gold doesn't travel with mud. I need like gravels and something like that. Typically I look for gravel bars because that's a place where there's enough water flow to kind of strip away the light muddy material and all those light sands and leave behind some heavies like rocks and gold. But there's just no gravels around here. Maybe there's another spot on the river that has the right depositional environment to test this, but it's not here. It was an idea anyway. All right, this is the Mississippi River. We're actually on the Iowa border, but still in the driftless zone. We're at a little picnic area next to the railroad tracks just north of Marquette, Iowa. Here I found a little bit of gravels on the side of the Mississippi, so I'm gonna just see what we find here. Oh, mud. So there's gravel on top. Underneath is just pure mud. You can see it's laminated, so sand and mud. That's not gonna have any gold in it. It's kind of cool though, there's like tunnels. See all that oxidation there? It could be where a root was growing, oxidizing the rock. Anyway,
You are such a nerd.
There's not gonna be anything in that mud. So next thing, I'm just gonna skim the top and just see if there's anything there. All right, let's look at our tailings. Now, there's some very iron-stained sandstone. That rich iron staining and oxidation is kind of a good sign. There might be some sulfide deposits in there, and there can be gold associated with that. This is super cool. This is a concretion that developed inside the rock. I don't know, but it looks to me like bitroidal hematite. Maybe goethite. You can see that bitroidal texture, all that lumpiness, that we call that bitroidal. But that could be a source of iron ore. We're not looking for iron though, but that's still really cool. Let's pan down the finds and see if there's any shiny in there. Still almost zero black sand, and I would have thought with that iron concretion there'd be more, but not really any black sand. There's a little bit. There's one silvery shiny speck like we've been seeing, but again, I'm not really seeing any sign of glacial deposits, no igneous, no metamorphics, really not much black sand, so I think we struck out again, but it was worth a try. While driving home, I crossed this river with this huge inside bend full of gravel, and lo and behold, it's on county land. So I can't pass it up. I got to test here. We're still in the driftless zone as far as I can tell, and all I'm seeing right now is a bunch of limestone cobbles. But let's take a pan. Before I even take my first pan, I found some igneous rock. Now this piece right here is potentially a piece of gabbro, which that could be a igneous intrusion into the country rock around here. But this piece is a piece of gneiss, and that screams metamorphism. And there's no metamorphic rock around here. It's not a metamorphic region. So I know this didn't come from here. This, to me, says this came from the glaciers. So there very well might be gold in this gravel bar. When I look at the tailings, it's dominantly limestone, but there's a piece of metamorphic. That's granite. That looks like schist. And this is a tiny piece of quartz. This is exciting. Can already see black sand in the riffles. There's way more black sand in this area. So there's a lot more black sand in that first pan, but no gold. I'm gonna take a few more pans and just see if I can find anything.
Don't get distracted.
But at least I think we're getting closer to some gold. So I just speed panned 5 pans down. This is the last of it. So we'll see what we got on the end of 5 pans back to back. You can see there's a lot more heavy material in this area for sure. Just don't know if there's any gold. Some nice black sand in those riffles. Let's toss it back. Oh, and I see a speck of gold. And that right there, clear as day, is a speck of gold. And here's a fossil clam. That is super cool. We did find gold. So there's not much, but there is gold here. Now, I don't know for a fact that I'm still in the driftless zone, but I know I'm on the edge. And that's super cool that we did find a speck of gold here. And when I look at my tailings, I can find little pieces of quartz like that. Not big, they're small, but there's pieces of quartz. That's a good sign. And there's other pieces of glacial material, granites, basalts, gabbros. So from what I can tell, if you want to find gold in the driftless zone, you still have to find some form of glacial deposits. So this is either at the edge of the driftless zone, or this river is carrying some glacial material along with it, and at least one speck of gold. Super cool. I'll poke around a little bit more, but let's go home and look at our snuffer jar. Check this out. Here's some evidence of digging. I bet somebody else has already been prospecting here. Thankfully they didn't leave deep holes, but that's definitely digging. And they knew what they were doing. There's some more gold up by those diggings. But just for the record, I'm finding a few more specks of gold, and there seems to be more on the lead edge of this gravel bar. I still have a lot to learn about how to read a river and where the gold deposits, but for here anyway, seems like there's a little bit more gold on the lead edge of this gravel bar. You guys can tell me if that's where you find most of your gold. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. I'm gonna take just a few more pans around the gravel bar to see if I can find any more specks, and then we'll go home. All right, we're back, so let's do a snuffer dump. There's not a huge weight differential here, so it's really hard to kind of separate what this is. All the sediment is moving with each other. Well, now that I look at them here, I'm kind of rethinking what they are. Let's see what my cheap little microscope shows. Well, there are clearly some gold pieces in there. Very interesting. The pieces I have here are exceptionally tiny. Now, I was thinking I was seeing pieces of galena in there in the field. Now that I look at it here, I'm not so sure. Some of this that I have here might still be some sulfides, but the way you tell the difference between sulfides and gold is malleable, sulfides are brittle. These are too tiny to test that way. However, you kind of get a feel for how gold moves in a pan because it's so heavy it doesn't move like anything else does. This looks like little pieces of gold. Now the question is, did I take that all from that stream in Iowa that I know had gold, or did some of this come from Platteville? I dumped it all in one snuffer. That wasn't the smartest thing to do. However, this is an incredibly small trace amount of gold. Here's what I'm looking at. There are the pieces, and there's my finger. They're very, very small pieces. I'd be willing to bet that the flecks of gold I have here did come from that stream in Iowa, and this might have a few of those sulfides. It's just so small I can't really tell. I'm wishing I hadn't put everything in the same snuffer bottle now. All I had was one snuffer bottle though. So what's my conclusion about the Driftless zone? Well, we only tested a few streams, but from what I can see, it's not really going to produce a lot of gold. There's not the glacial deposits that would have brought the gold there, and there are mineralized zones with the zinc mining and the lead mining, and it's possible that there are some trace elements of gold that came with it. My knowledge of geology is basic. I'm not an economic geologist. I don't know the specifics of all the mineral transfers. I know typically the gold will drop out of solution before it gets into a place where zinc and lead are deposited. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be trace amounts brought with. Stuff like that happens. So it's possible that these tiny little specks are from that mineralization, and I just lucked into a few of them. Is that going to accumulate to much? No, it's not. There's never been a gold mine in Wisconsin for that reason. There have been mines with trace elements of gold, but never a gold mine. So my conclusion, you never know what's out there until you look. If you're from the Driftless zone, write a comment and tell me what you find. But if I was going to prospect there again, I would try to find somewhere on the edge of the Driftless zone, closer to that glacial material. I think that's going to be a much better bet. Anyway, thanks for coming along on the journey. Come on back for the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.